Very good. Thanks so much, Matthias, and also to all the startups for the great pitches. I'll be transitioning now into a discussion. I think some of the questions, maybe like few burning questions from the audience are there. I'd like to have a bit of a framing of the topic first with the panelists. We'll be delving into the adoption and integration of generative AI for corporates. I know that we have many corporate colleagues, not only for Generali, but also a few other partners here, and also some other insurance companies that are attending the meeting. So for having a bit of an understanding about the overall opportunity for this new this new evolution of an AI technology, right? This generative AI perspective, and how is that changing in the corporate setup, and also which are like some of the key issues that are emerging from that. So probably maybe like putting some relevance on these data security, legal issues, things that are actually have been anticipated, and a lot of the startups have already shared with us. So I recall the topics of deep fakes and cyber threats that Corsound, DeepKeep, Teradai, and Sepio have been discussing about and already providing solutions. Also very important from the corporate perspective, of course, is all the data privacy space. Even also like mentioning copyright and IP topics that can emerge from the generative AI component, and also from both Reflectis and Planck, I guess like we can very much as well start understanding what is this hallucination factors that the generative AI can really introduce now in how we do business in so many of our core process in the insurance business, such as the underwriting piece. So really exploring those a bit better with three esteemed experts. Some of them you've already met throughout the event. We've got also here in the panel Penny Schiffer. Penny is a global thought leader in AI for venture capitalists. I would say like the space of investment you are covering very, very nicely with your company, Raise AI. As a founder and CEO, but also mentioning that Penny has over a decade of experience in corporate innovation, strategy consulting, and M&A. So you've been really also on the side of the corporates, I know in a former position with Swisscom. So you understand very well like the integration of technology and what does this mean for corporates. So welcome here, Penny, in the panel.
Hello, welcome. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Then I like also briefly to mention Tomer Michaeli as another person that we've invited here in the panel, because apart from sharing all the insights from the Israeli ecosystem, there is something that also caught my attention from his profile. So he's been an entrepreneur and a very successful entrepreneur himself. He founded Foundbox. This is a FinTech unicorn providing short-term credit to SME in the US. And I think that it's a great combination. So welcome also here, Tomer, in that panel discussion. And thanks for your opening from the ecosystem in Israel. Very good. And last but not least, as well, we do have here Elad. Elad was introduced in Planck, so he understands very well the Insurtech space. You're working with lots of insurance in the commercial lines piece. And so I think that could be as well a great addition on how to tackle those topics that you were discussing for insurance specifically. As well here on the profile mentioning that Elad has successfully exited Bluetail Corporation to Salesforce, which is nowadays Salesforce Einstein. You might have heard about it, the ones that are really like exploring further on the topic of generative AI and how this can be tapped for the customer side, like the customer experience piece. And so Elad has been quite deep in the topic since a while and had already very successful exits in this space. So very much welcome here as well to you, Alad, and congratulations.
Thank you very much, Ruth.
Very good. So I'd like to start the conversation and maybe addressing this to Penny from the experience more from the corporate side. And how have you seen corporates, and how would you actually recommend in terms of tapping into this strategic approach, how to perceive the opportunities for generative AI, how to maybe overcome this hype that is happening right now, but also focus on, how to address those issues that we've been discussing here, Penny.
Yes, thank you, Ruth. So it was very exciting to hear so much about amazing solutions that can help you overcome risks and challenges. And I think it's important to not be overwhelmed by all the things that could go wrong. So all the solutions today can really help you figure out what, make you aware of what can go wrong. But I think for a corporate, now is the time to evaluate what you want to achieve, what is the business value that AI can bring to you. So don't be scared here. And in order to do so, I think it's important to start with a business problem, conduct your research then on available AI technologies, and then try to do an overall or a preliminary cost-benefit analysis. So with the new tools that we now have with large language models and generative AI, some of the cases that have been very expensive before or not feasible are now feasible. So do a cost-benefit analysis. And then comes the important piece. When you want to find out if something can work and how to do it, do a pilot. So when we think about how we deploy AI technologies, we always think of, like, imagine you were building the Gotthard tunnel, like a big tunnel underground. You don't start drilling the big hole on the first day, but you would do an exploratory small tunnel, we call it the 5-centimeter hole, to find out what a new technology can do, how you would deploy it, if it works, what kind of data you need, and you do it in a pilot space. It's already deploying technology, but it's not doing it in a way that you have to bring the big drilling machines. And once you've done that, you can evaluate the risk and challenges and set up a team for the implementation. That sounds like a lot of steps, but on the other hand, this is also an exploratory, fun way to get your hands on the new technology at hand. And I think it's important to do it cross-functional. So not just have tech people do their evaluation and business people, but get them on board to the same level. That was a long answer, Ruth, but I think it's important to go step by step if you want to explore new technologies.
Very good. No, I mean, I think those are some thoughts that we are already having in the corporate setup, right? And there are different approaches. And I think right now there is as well a lot of unknowns. And therefore, it's important to have this step-by-step approach, start exploring, right? That's your recommendation. So if I could also now for Tomer and the Insurtech space in Israel, very active. So what are you seeing? How are the startups positioning themselves to tap on those opportunities? How are they supporting as well this exploration phase for corporates?
Yeah, so I think that, Israeli startups are very nimble, sort of like in their ability to to harness new technologies and new opportunities, sometimes even too fast. Sometimes they underappreciate, the, slowness of corporations to adopt new technologies. But in general, I'll say that, I think that Israeli companies very early recognized, many of them have been leveraging AI, and again, Planck, Elad, is one of our portfolio companies, and they were very early in identifying the opportunity and the huge potential that AI has to make corporate processes more efficient. Planck is what we call enabler, basically helping large corporations and especially financial institutions leverage their existing assets, all their underwriting data, all their claims data, that is unstructured and really, all their, manual processes, and basically leverage AI to make them much more efficient, much more effective, and basically sort of like 21st century ready. And I think that, this is a great example of how Israeli startups in general are leveraging these kind of technologies. And I think that, large language models and generative AI is yet another, step function in that ability. And again, but I want to stress, this is not an evolution, it's definitely a revolution, right? I think that's really important. And I think that some people say, no, it's just, maybe a better AI or whatever, but no, I think that, it really is gonna make a huge difference and a true revolution in the speed of and the ease of deploying AI at scale, and definitely, has some challenges, and as many other people, described here, that should be addressed. But I think that this is where we see, the Israeli startups really work with corporations. They start with educating them, really, learning, and actually many of them already know and understand the challenges of these corporations, and really apply very efficiently and very quickly, the solution to their main problems, whether it's, insurance underwriting or detecting fraud insurance fraud, or automating claims like FNOL, for instance, and many other use cases.
Very good. So you're stating here, you're making a statement about the breakthrough potential of generative AI, which we are all excited about. You're calling it a revolution, but tapping into your comment as well on how long it takes for corporates as well to really adopt these technologies, and thinking about all the startups that you're investing, and the runways and the capital that is being deployed there. Do you have any predictions here on how is this timeline looking for the space of generative AI, and where do you see also there are some challenges from adoption in relation to funding, or in relation to how to overcome all these issues will really take some time for corporates?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I think that it's not like the adoption speed of corporations will change tomorrow morning to, from a year or two to a quarter. I wish it was the case, and probably, should have been the case, but unfortunately that is not the way. But still, I think that maybe but I think there's still, a lot of potential for acceleration, because I think that many times, one of the biggest bottlenecks is, for instance, IT, right? I think that definitely today, the ability to develop and deploy technological solutions, basically by users who are completely, non-technological people, is again, really on steroids. This is again, one of the biggest revolution of generative AI. Basically, you can describe the technological solution by basically human words, either writing it or even saying it. And then, the technology will basically generate a lot of that. So I think that actually there's in generative AI, there's huge potential in accelerating, adoption and opening a lot of bottlenecks in corporate adoptions. Some things, are human nature, right? Risk averse and the fact that you want to test something many, many times. And I think, again, this will take many, many more years to change. But still, I think there's, a real opportunity here to accelerate adoption of innovation. But still, you need a lot of, long breath. It still takes years to go and sell to large, insurance companies. And, investors should need to have that, length of breath, and startups as well.
Very good. Maybe I'd like to make a reference here to a recent survey that Salesforce have performed to 500 IT leaders. They find out that 67% of the IT leaders are prioritizing generative AI for their business within the next next year and a half, so 18 months, despite some concerns over ethics, accuracy, security, and other issues. So that's probably a bit of the timelines that we might be working with. I'd like also to, from the perspective of Elad, you've been as well trying to introduce this technology, or rather trying to bring solutions. How is this? Maybe you can break down a bit more this topic of data security and legal compliance. What does this mean, Elad, and how are you really engaging into those conversations? What's the real issue here for corporates?
I think there are, when you're looking at an executive in the industry, in the insurance industry, you have the executive's two hands being pulled to two different directions. On the one hand, people tell him, "Are you crazy? You're not using Gen AI today. This is revolutionizing the market. It's such an important advancement in the technology in the past 2 decades. You have to use it. You're going to lose your competitive advantage if you're not using it, because everyone else will use it." And on the other hand, "Are you crazy? You're going to let your employees use Gen AI? You know how many dangers out there with Gen AI?" So I think that you need to look at security and legal aspects. You need to understand them and be able to mitigate all of those risks. I will not speak too much about security, but there are different factors regarding security, like we've had SQL injection or SQL injections in the past. Now we have Gen AI query injections, where people intentionally write some description about their business, as we see, or description about themselves, and that's being sent into a Gen AI platform, and the results that generate are completely different. And we saw a few nice demos from one of the startup pitches today. But let's speak about the legal aspects. It's an evolving challenge. Just look at last week's lawsuit against OpenAI. Look at Italy banning and enabling ChatGPT, and you people in general, you probably are very well aware of it. In order to mitigate it, you need to have a very educated legal team continuously reviewing all of those aspects. You need to be able to deploy your own model. You need to be able to control on what data the model is being trained on, etc. You have the intellectual property aspects, where any artistic work that's being generated by AI is not owned by you, even though you've operated that AI, and is not owned by the AI itself, not owned by the people that wrote it, but they might claim that someone else might claim that this IP belongs to that person. If you're asking to write a letter like any Shakespeare play, the IP might belong to the people that hold Shakespeare's intellectual property. Now, to mitigate that, it's not easy. You need to monitor your queries. You need to instruct and build guidelines to your employees. You need to have sample reviews of the responses that you get. You might want to use, like we do, multiple LLMs in a row, one after the other, to obfuscate any remnants of IP that remained in generation of those artistic results. Confidential data, obviously, it's trivial. Any data you put there might be used to train. You want to know where you're deploying your data and what do you do with that. And many companies like Planck put lots of NLP tools to detect PIIs, personally identifiable pieces of information, in queries and in responses, to make sure you don't have any privacy concerns or any leakage of confidential information. And I think the biggest risk with Gen AI is the accuracy problem, as we all call it, the hallucination of that. Not trivial. Those models want to generate results. They always generate very, very well-written results, very convincing results. A lot of time, it's pure nonsense. In order to use it, you need to really know how to use it, to build the infrastructure, to make sure they focus on the areas where they're good at and limit the hallucination part.
Very good. Thank you. I think, yes, this makes a lot of sense, and it creates a bit of a, so it is good to understand where are those points that can be critical from the data security perspective. But I know that the legal piece is also, and the regulations, the regulators are still trying to shed some light on how to react to generative AI. Elad, give us a bit of an insight about what's happening in that space.
It's not easy being a startup in this area, and this is because we want to innovate and want to move fast, and regulation isn't there, and countries are not there, and there is a huge difference between the different countries in the world regarding that. Look at Japan that released a law that basically allows you to do whatever you want with AI. No one can file a claim against you. Basically, everything is fine with AI, with generative AI. Look at the US with about 2.5 pages of the corporate office in the Library of Congress stating what IP considerations might be there. And as a startup CEO, I'm able to read it and understand it. And now giving a bit critics on the EU, look at the 349 pages of legislation released in June 14th on generative AI by the EU. I haven't read it. My legal team read it. It was a nightmare. Can't support innovation with 350 pages of regulation that people need to read. And from past experience that I have, I'm a biometrics expert and was involved in the Israeli biometrics regulation and adopting the regulation that the industry built. In biometrics, you had the FIDO Alliance, FIDO Alliance of Google and Microsoft and Apple and Amazon and gazillion other companies that just said governments are too slow, they haven't built regulation, we want to self-regulate the industry. And they've built regulations for that later on the governments adopted. I'm a strong believer in that. I think that we as industry, we move very, very fast and governments are way behind us, and we need to regulate ourselves. We need to be able to do it in an ethical manner and build our own regulation that later on, I hope governments will find interesting and try to adopt.
Thank you so much. And I think that calls up for a further cooperation here to work together and to really have this cross-functional view that Penny, you were mentioning before. And I think Tomer made a mention also of the IT teams. How is all this new technology very much revolutionizing as well the way IT is being managed? So Elad, you've mentioned about your legal, your team of lawyers. Penny, from once more going back into the corporate world, what can you say about the governance of generative AI in that setup? How can we think about to allocate responsibility and resources for that?
Yeah. That's an interesting question, and I would like to go back to what Tomer has been saying before, that now the subject matter experts are much more important to evaluate the quality of the models and to drive the adoption of AI models. I can give you one example. So we are working together also in our startup with very tech-focused people and very subject matter experts. With the subject matter experts. And when we create prompts and evaluate the output, oftentimes the tech people cannot evaluate the content of the output by themselves because they don't have the subject matter expertise. Before, we would have training data sets, we would have objective criteria against which you are developing your solutions. But right now, the subject matter experts are needed to evaluate the output of models in a way that we haven't seen before. And this is not easy to do. So you cannot just define a topic, send it to a software development team to create it and then get back the result. But you have to really co-create together on the topics, on the business cases you are developing. And I think this will also shift a bit the responsibility and the driver's seat actually from the technology people back into the business people. And the technology people who don't realize this or who don't embrace it, for them it will be hard to have the role that they used to have if they don't want to work with subject matter experts in a very deep and ingrained way. This is not easy for all tech people, obviously. It's not always fun. Subject matter experts make your life difficult, but this is now something that needs to be reconsidered, and that will change how we develop solutions. And just a small thing that I also wanted to mention, I'm now talking to a lot of tech people that have great engineering degrees, and a lot of them actually don't want to get their hands dirty anymore. So they want to think about AI, but they don't want to do something. And I find it a little sad because it's relatively easy with a bit of technical background to get started with GPT beyond writing emails. And I encourage everybody to get going and try to explore it on the next level of technology savviness.
Very good. I like this call to action for all of us to lose a bit these inhibitants and just get our hands dirty. We don't have much time. It's 1 minute left, and I don't see any questions in the chat. I don't know if anybody has a burning question that we would like to maybe in half a minute take up here before closing the panel. No, I mean, otherwise, I'm just checking the chat. No, so otherwise, please engage with us still. We've got now here the introduction of the great panelists, so you can for sure reach out as well directly or reach out to us as well. I thank you very much to the three of you for the knowledge that you've shared with us. And with this last minute also, I'd like to very briefly give another introduction to Martin Lütji, who's been supporting us and also coordinating the event together. He's the Director of Business Development at the Israeli Economic and Trade Mission to Switzerland. And maybe briefly, your last minute here, Martin, to say a few words for how to continue and how to engage further.
Thank you very much, Rose. So as she already mentioned in the beginning of this conference, we will be happy to follow up and to do matchmaking according the needs and the wish you have. I'm mainly talking to the Swiss audience, so its team, Gabriela, Matthias, and Rose, gonna share with you my contact details. So please feel free to approach us and to let us know the companies you would like to be in touch with. We will do matchmaking, and we can also, by the way, dive into other topics and other questions you would like to explore in Israel. So we'll be happy to be in touch with you after this conference. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, Martin. That's very kind of you. That's a great opportunity for all of us. Please reach out to Martin, reach out to us at the House of Insurtech.ch info, or any other of the personal contacts that we've been sharing throughout the events. Thanks so much for sharing those last 2 hours with us. Thanks to all the startups and all our partners as well for making that possible.